it play and call it work.
Hey there, Wargamers. You've got Josh and Luka here from MiniWarGaming, here to give you our first impression of Necromunda. Now we've got the box here. We actually got a couple of them. And we've cracked open the rules. We haven't had a chance to play. So again, this is going to be about a short 30-minute, 45-minute, depending on how into it we get.
Right.
In first impressions of this book. This isn't going to be the full in-depth review of the book. That will be coming out later throughout this later coming up through this upcoming week. There we go, words. And as well as gameplay, of course.
Right. So basically, we're getting set up. Luke and I are going to play through a series of linked games for Underhive. So we were spending the day trying to learn the rules, read the book, and we were asked if we could do kind of a first impressions video. So here we are to kind of talk about what we've seen in the rules and kind of what we're looking forward to and thoughts and opinions.
Right off the bat, I'm impressed.
Yeah,
I like it.
I think they did a really good job.
They did a very good job with this book. I opened this box up expecting Shadespire, I guess. Like, I like Shadespire. I got nothing wrong with Shadespire, but I was expecting this just to be the 40k Shadespire.
Right. So there was a lot of talk originally because they said that they were going to release Underhive and then they were going to release Gang War.
Exactly.
So I think the original impression people got was that Underhive was going to be more of a board game and that Gang War would be Necromunda proper.
Yep.
But no, Necromunda Underhive is
Necromunda proper.
Is a lot more of a full game here.
This right here, guys, is literally... So I'm not super experienced with the original Necromunda, but I have played it.
Yeah.
I have played it, and this rulebook is very similar.
Right, it's definitely,
similar.
I mean, there are a couple little changes, but that's not the purpose of this video to go over all the little changes,
Yep.
and Luke and I wouldn't be the best people to do it anyways, because we have limited experience with the past Necromunda, but we're going to be the ones playing the Underhive linked games.
So
and
we figured we cracked them on the book, at least learn the rules, and you know what, as we were reading through the rules, there was no surprises. There was no like, oh, okay. Well, there was one, but it's kind of akin to the old Necromunda anyways.
Are you talking with the pre-measure?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
There is no pre-measuring.
But let's crack right into, I mean, Dave did the unboxing already, but we're going to talk about the book that you receive in Necromunda Underhive.
Right off the bat, it's kind of sectioned off into two parts. There's basic rules, advanced rules, story for the two starting factions. You got the Goliath and the Escher. So House Escher, House Goliath.
Correct, yeah.
House Escher is composed of, I'm pretty sure it's 100% females.
I think all the combat portions of it are
Yeah.
female. There are males, but they're not in any positions of power or any prestigious kind of positions in there.
So House Escher is full of very aggressive females, while House Goliath is... House Goliath, I didn't take a lot of time reading the story, but they seem like very large, armored men.
That sums it up. In the
House Goliath.
40k setting of large, armored, angry men, they have mohawks.
Yeah, Mohawks. That's a very key defining factor of House Goliath there.
So one thing that is nice, and one thing that I was worried about when they announced Necromunda and all these other specialist games that some I have more access with than others, is I was worried about how much they were still going to be, retaining the feel of the previous games, as well as respecting the lore of the previous games.
Right.
So I've had the chance to not read super in depth, but skim through all the lore, and I found with some of the releases, there's not much of a focus on lore.
Right.
But cracking open this book, which is actually very nice. Yes, there are 36 pages of lore that talk a little bit about the Imperium, but are mostly right in depth with Necromunda proper itself.
Yeah. What is Necromunda exactly? What it's composed of? The different levels of it.
Talking about the different great houses. Yeah. And I mean, all of the, I just flipped the page of the houses of Necromunda, so they have all the different clan houses in here. So we're talking about House Cawdor, Escher, Goliath, Van Sar, Orlok, and Delaque. I think that's how you pronounce the last one. I don't know. I'm terrible with pronunciation.
Which one's that one?
Right there.
Yeah, I'd say Delaque.
I've been saying Delaque, so I'm going to stick with it. I think that's how Lee pronounces it. So yeah.
And Lee would know. I like to imagine.
Out of anybody here, he'd probably be the one to know, but...
So anyways, yeah, okay, correct me if I'm wrong. This is their first take on one of their old specialist games.
No, they've done a couple more of them. Blood Bowl will probably be the one.
I forgot about Blood Bowl. Sorry. Wow. Yep. I can't believe I forgot about Blood Bowl. So Blood Bowl, then now Necromunda.
Wow. Yeah, and I mean, when Armageddon came out, it felt a little bit Necromunda-ish.
It was like a weird...
It was a cool game, but I mean, when people said that was going to be the new Necromunda, I was pretty disappointed. But I'm glad to see that this is here.
Here you have the new Necromunda. Anyways, like right off the bat, you got a whole bunch of things.
Yeah.
Well, there's general principles at the beginning of the book, and the general principles kind of cover what the game's about and what to expect in the game. You have stuff, well, the rules, of course.
We'll do the rules in a second.
Yeah.
Want to talk some general principles here, Luka?
Yeah. So no pre-measuring right off the bat.
That's huge.
Yeah.
I was again worried that they were going to add pre-measuring into the game because I typically don't love pre-measured games, especially skirmish size games.
The no pre-measuring in a skirmish size game makes the game for me. And they have everything back, guys. Too. Don't forget, like the templates are back. I actually popped the flame template because I was playing with it. All the templates are back, and these are all guess weapons now.
Correct.
Well, they're all like. For example, you have a grenade or whatever grenade launcher. You're just you assume I'm gonna place it right there. You actually then measure how far you can shoot it, and then you technically drag the template back that far to where you originally guessed, and then you scatter it from that point. So it's probably not gonna hit anything for most of the time.
Definitely pretty cool. So looking at the stats, we're going to start off with talking about the characteristic profiles. Yep. So pretty standard if you guys are used to Games Workshop games. Everybody has a movement value, self-explanatory. Weapon skill and ballistic skill, these are set values. So it's the weapon skill, ballistic skill, like 4 up, 3 up, wherever they might be.
Exactly. So it takes off the new 40k, obviously. So you're always hitting on 4 up or always hitting on 4 up or 4 up for weapon skill, ballistic skill if you have weapon skill, ballistic skill 4.
And then modifiers come in, right?
And then there's a ton of modifiers to
And then
count.
you've got your strength, toughness, and wounds characteristics that everybody's familiar with. There is an initiative value.
Yep. But I think
it's for taking initiative tests for different things. Yeah.
It's not so much order of striking. It's more or less you got to jump down this wall, right? Or climb up this thing, jump across a gap.
It measures a fighter's dexterity and reflexes.
Yes, that's the general description of it.
Right. And then they've also got your attacks, your leadership value. And then the other things they've added in.
New characteristics.
Right. We have cool. So the fighter's cool represents their capacity for keeping calm under fire.
Yep.
There is willpower. It is a measure of a fighter's mental fortitude and resilience. And then intelligence represents a fighter's mental acuity and ability to apply knowledge. That's another one of those words that I've read a bunch. And
acuity?
Acuity.
Acuity of knowledge.
Is that right?
I will agree with you.
We're gonna stick with it.
I'm a no conflict kind of guy. Sure, Josh. That's what it is.
If you've watched any battle reports with us, we know that is untrue, sir.
No. But hey, we try to hide it as best as we can.
I don't.
Oh, I do. Not.
So yeah, pretty simple. One thing that they've added in here that you have access to, let's see if we can find them. We have all the different cards.
Yeah.
So
it's gonna be hard to see, but
you won't be able to see it that well. But they have pre-made cards for the pre-made gangs in here.
Yep. As
well as they give you, I think it's 20 blank cards to make your own gang.
Yep.
And have your own stats. So it'd be pretty easy to get these. I'm thinking laminated and then just using dry erase markers.
Yep. You'd have to be careful because that's very easy to erase dry erase marker. Like just like, oh, I forgot what all my stats were.
Well, yeah, you'd still probably have your roster sheet with all your main info.
That's true.
You
just fill that out through the game. Yeah, that's true. You can do that. Oh,
So they give you space on there. The fighter's name, if they're a leader or a champion. There is the value in credits, as well as their characteristics that we talked about, the weapons and gear being carried, any skills, and then, equipment.
Next after that, it goes into measuring distances. Well, sorry. We should probably talk about the weapon profiles.
Yeah, then there's weapon profiles as well.
The new weapon profile.
Same thing that we're used to is we've got the range, accuracy, strength, armor penetration, damage, ammo, and the traits. So we are back to a system where there's short and long ranges for weapons, and then there's accuracy modifiers for those.
Yep. And then a whole bunch of weapon traits as well. Now, there's a difference between the basic game and the advanced game, which we'll go into detail later. But there's a good amount of traits.
Recommendations to start with the basic rules. And as we talk through, we're going to be sticking with the basic rules until we get to the advanced rule section, obviously.
Which will help you get a better understanding of how this is closer to the original Necromunda.
So you want to talk about some of the basic principles of the game here?
Basic principles of the game, again, no pre-measuring. There's a lot of things to consider for line of sight blocking. When you measure line of sight, they kind of give you a neat little tool, which is like a clear ruler. You can use tape measures, which most people probably will do. There's a clear measuring stick that it goes up to about a foot, but it's got a red line down the center that helps you measure true line of sight. And there's front arcs as well. They give you front arc templates. So it gives you a tip in the book when you're painting your models, when you're assembling your models on the base, when you're basing, paint like a symbol to symbolize where you want the
just
front
a little
arc.
line there for the front arc.
So you can always put the little front arc template in front of your model to show your opponent what you intend, and the arc they'll be facing.
Right. Recommendation is to use the facing of the miniature where the
Yep.
face is looking, but this lets you be a little bit more accurate, which is nice.
Yes, I would suggest putting a little tick there with a paintbrush if you could.
Yep.
Oh, templates are back, of course. You have the new characteristics we covered. Then there's 4 types of dice. This one. So we have the basic D6 die. We have scatter dice. Scatter dice are back. Obviously, you need them with the templates.
Correct.
We have firepower dice, which are for the advanced game. We can go quickly deal with the firepower dice. You roll them to check to see if you run out of ammo,
Yep.
or to see how many shots you get based on certain
On
weapons.
rapid fire weapons
Exactly.
to see how many kind of hits you're getting.
And of course, if you run out of ammo, you can always reload. That's just another skill in the advanced game. We'll get into detail there. And finally, they have injury dice. So instead of there being an injury table that you reference
Correct.
throughout the game, if you're to go down to 0 wounds, and instead of being in the basic game, you're just out of action. That's how you play in the basic game. But in the advanced game, you instead roll an injury die, and there are symbols on the die. There's a symbol for out of action, serious injury, and flesh wound, just like the old one.
Correct.
So flesh wound simply means you lose 1 toughness. Serious injury means you are face down out of action. And during the recovery phase in the advanced game, you roll the die to see what happens to you. You either continue the serious injury, or you gain a flesh wound, you get back up, or you're out of action. Those are the 4 new types of dice. Next, after that, it kind of goes into detail how you measure line of sight. Line of sight's pretty simple in this game. You take the clear stick ruler, or you can use like a laser pointer.
Yeah,
Like
I tend to use the laser line.
Yep. All you do is you find the center of your model space, like the front of Arctic that we suggest you measure, and you draw a straight line to the enemy model. And if it ever touches any part of their base, you have line of sight.
Correct.
That's it. That's all you need. And then later you check for cover and all that. We can go into detail that, when it comes up.
Next, they talk about the different fighter statuses.
Statuses. You got a few. I guess, again, this is the basic game. You have
Standing, active, engaged, prone, and pinned. And then seriously injured. But that's advanced rule set.
advanced rules, yeah.
There's a few different secondary statuses that you can represent via tokens. And that comes into, again, advanced kind of game rule set stuff.
Then pretty much, that's all of the structure of the game. No.
It's the basics, of the information you need to be able to run the game.
Yeah, so it's a good 4 or 5 pages of just things to keep in mind while you're playing the game. This is how certain things work. Now they go into the rules, the basic rules of the game, and
Correct.
This is where stuff will start making more sense.
Do you want to talk about the game structure here?
Yep. So there's 3 basic rounds to the game. The way it works is at the start you both roll off. We set up your models. You both roll off. Whoever rolls higher gets a priority token essentially. And then you mark all your fighters as ready. And you usually organize their cards in a certain way, or you just memorize it.
They give you tokens
Yeah.
that you can use. So talking game structure, the round sequence, every round is split into 3 different phases, and they are resolved one at a time. So there's the priority phase that we talked about.
Exactly.
There's the action phase, and then the end phase.
Now, the one difference here, as opposed to the old game, instead of going player 1 moves all his models and activates all his models, and player 2 does that, it's alternating between models. So again, you both roll off. Whoever wins the roll off gets a priority token, and you'll do this at the start of every new round between the 2 players. And you finish a round when everyone's activated all their models. You would then both roll off again. Whoever had the priority token before loses ties on the roll. Otherwise, you just keep rolling. Whoever gets it.
Correct.
So player A, who wins a priority, gets to choose one of their models and activates it, and they get 2 actions each, which we'll go into detail what those are. And then player B goes, activates a model, and then player A, player B, player A, player B, until they're both done activating all their models. You do a cleanup at the end, which is the end phase.
Correct.
In the basic game, there's not a whole lot to it. In the advanced games, when you check for injuries and bottling and fleeing and rallying, there's a whole lot more to the advanced game.
Correct. So we're going to talk real quick. We've already talked about the priority phase, which is simply the roll off to see who's going to get to activate first in that game round. The action phase, when you go to activate one of your readied gang members.
Yep.
There's different types of actions you can do. There's basic actions.
Yep.
And we are looking at each basic action can only be made once during a fighter's activation. So you get your 2 actions. But you can't. Examples of basic action would be shoot.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't shoot. You can't do the same basic twice.
Yep.
There are simple actions, and simple actions.
I'm pretty sure you can do them multiple times.
You do get to do those multiple times if you so choose. So simple actions. Let's see. What do we got for simple actions here?
I can't quite remember. There wasn't a whole
move.
lot. Yeah,
Move would be an example.
You could move and then
Correct.
move.
And
that's both your actions.
right. And then there's double actions, which are taking up both of your actions that you get for him.
Like,
And that would be charge as an example of something you could do.
So you get to move and then make an attack right afterwards, which is a double action. There's going to be a lot of situations where your models will not be able to make a double two actions. They'll be limited. If they stand up, obviously that takes up one of your actions.
Correct.
And there's certain states your model can be in where they lose one of their two actions, or heck, they might lose both their actions.
So when you're trying to figure out what different actions you can do, you're basically looking at, for the base game, 3 different, you get active fighters, engaged fighters, and then pinned fighters.
Yeah.
And then depending on what you get there, it gives you the list of the different actions you can do.
And of course, there's a bunch of different types of moves you can do. There's like double moves, half moves, quarter moves, triple moves.
Yeah, they'll
all that
instruct
jazz.
you. So a standard move would be using your full movement value.
Yep.
So the move action would be an example of something you can do.
Yeah.
And then if we look at, let's see, the crawl action for a pinned fighter, you're making a half move.
Yep.
And that's a double action.
Exactly.
So as
That's your whole turn. If you're down and you're pinned and you don't stand up, you're just crawling,
Yep.
trying to get behind cover. One thing to note is if you're pinned and you're also behind cover, you're treated as out of line of sight completely. You can't get shot at.
Can't get shot at, yeah.
So it's a good spot to be in, of course. Another thing to note is you're allowed to freely move through your own models.
Yeah, you are allowed to freely move through your own models. You just can't end with your base overlapping.
Exactly. So your models don't kind of bottleneck yourself in. You're allowed to freely move out, but just don't stand on top of them. Simple.
Correct.
It's a common rule across most GW games. So that shouldn't be hard to pick up. Next, we can go into shooting attacks.
Yeah, talking about
how
the
shooting generally works.
here. So the sequence that you're going to use is you're going to start by declaring your shot.
Yep.
So you're picking a ranged weapon and picking a target. Move on to, once you've declared your shot, you check the range to make sure you are in range.
And of course, that's where the no pre-measuring comes in, because if you pick your target and you're out of range, then the shot automatically fails.
Correct. You make your hit roll. And so you've got your basic to hit, and then you figure out your modifiers. So you have modifiers for partial cover, full cover, accuracy, being engaged, the target being engaged, and then prone.
So there's rules in the book that dictate how you look for cover. And again, back to the clear little measuring stick you might want to keep on hand. It really helps you. It dictates in the book how you check for cover. If like one half of the measuring stick's covered, then they have partial cover. If like both halves of the measuring stick are covered, because you're shooting through a narrow gap, it's usually full cover. Obviously, if they're behind a big wall, it's full cover. And you look at -1 to hit, -2 to hit for full cover, -1 if it's partial.
Correct. From there, your target is pinned. So if you hit your target, you do pin them.
Exactly, automatically pinned right there.
And then from there, you go into resolving the hits.
Yep, seeing if you wound them, how much damage you deal, if you do any at all. You check their saves after that.
So simple sequence, but if you're familiar with Necromunda of old, you're familiar with Armageddon, whatever it might be,
Yep.
a lot of these concepts should be pretty familiar to folks.
And obviously, just getting a simple hit and pinning someone's a huge achievement right there. Because oftentimes you'll find in this game that you're hitting on 7+. Right, you're starting with like a basic ballistic
Which
skill.
is possible, yeah.
So hitting on a 7+ is obviously hitting on a 6, re-rolling into a 4-up.
Yeah, I think you use your basic ballistic skill after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was I gonna...
Next, we're going to talk about cover real quick.
Yeah.
So when we are playing with the Necromunda Underhive rule set, you're playing Zone Mortalis,
Yes.
essentially. You're playing on a mostly 2D board with some 3D terrain, but you don't have the option of going multiple levels or anything like
Exactly.
that. So the system that they're doing is you're measuring from the middle of your base, and you're looking to see what you can see for your enemy. So if you are able to measure from the middle of your base and see both of the edges of the enemy base on either side,
Yeah.
they're out in the open.
They're out in the open.
If you can only trace a line to one of the sides of their base and not the other,
partial
then they're
cover.
partial cover. And then if you aren't able to get either one, but you still are able to see them,
Full cover.
simple setup.
Yeah.
Again, this is one of those games where I'm super glad I bought one of the laser.
Exactly. The laser pointer is huge in this one.
Right.
It's simple cover. There's like no questions. There's no weird interpretation of it. If you see both sides are in the open, you see one side half. Don't see both sides full. That's it. I like it. It's simple. I
Nice and easy.
appreciate it. I appreciate it.
We're going to jump over to close combat and look at the close combat sequence. So you start by turning to face.
Yeah.
So there is line of sight arcs in this.
Exactly. You can't. If someone's behind your model, you can't just swing backwards and hit them. Right.
Well, it's strictly optional too. So if you do turn to face, so if you've got them partially in line of sight, you're going to be able to make a swing.
Exactly.
But if you don't, you will have to turn. And even if they're partially line of sight, you could choose to turn to face if you want.
Yeah.
But you take a penalty for that.
Which is -1 to hit them.
Yep. You pick your weapon. You determine your attack dice. Keep in mind, like, you might have 2 close combat weapons you can make use of.
Exactly. Yep.
So determining the attack dice is you take your attack characteristic and then look at bonuses for charging or dual weapons. And you then declare your targets.
Yep. Simple.
Very similar to Armageddon. If you are using 2 different close combat weapons, you got to do your best to split those up.
Yeah. So you have to
Equally split those up,
yeah.
rather.
So you got 2 guys on you. It's like 2 attacks, attack, attack.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
You can't say, you know, I've got 4 attacks. I'm going to make 3 with this weapon, 1 with the other. Unless
Exactly.
something specifies that it must be done that way.
Yeah. If you have like a knife and like a power weapon in one hand, you have 2 attacks. Has to go 1 on the knife,
Correct.
1 on the power weapon.
The exception here would be like a pistol. You are allowed to use pistols in close combat, but
Yep.
you only allocate 1 of your attacks to your pistol in close combat.
Yep.
So once you've cleared your targets, you make your hit rolls. Once you've made your hit rolls, you're going to resolve those hits. Enemies make reaction attacks. And then after everything happens, you consolidate.
Simple. Just like
Simple,
shooting.
straightforward.
There's not a whole lot to it. This again, these are the basic rules. We're getting through it. Once you get to the advanced rules, you'll see more.
Yeah,
more to it.
this is a game that might be, if you haven't played Necromunda, Mordheim, some of the other games in the past, it might seem like there's a bunch if you're not familiar with, I don't want to call it second edition because this isn't second edition anyway, but
It's like a
some of the concepts might be different to people.
Yeah.
So it gives you the chance to play through and kind of get familiarized with it in bits and pieces. So there's your close combat. They talk about resolving hits, so making the wound roll, save rolls, and inflicting damage.
And of course, there's armor penetration in this as well. And the wound table for this is the exact same as 40K's. So if your strength and toughness match, 4 up. If your strength is higher than their toughness but not double, it's 3 as a wound. But if it's double, then it's 2 as a wound.
Yep.
And it's the same the opposite direction.
Nice and easy there. Everybody counts. If you don't have a save, you count as having a 7-up save.
Yep.
So there are things that will modify your save in a positive way.
Yep.
So if you have +1 to your save, well, and you don't have a save normally, you count as having a 7, so it goes to a 6.
Exactly.
Yeah, simple stuff. And then right to the end phase.
The end phase in the basic game is crazy simple.
It's the end of the round.
Yeah.
And you go back to the priority.
The action phase is the basic game. Once you're both done activating both models, that's it. You just roll for priority again and go on to another round of combat.
So we kind of did our best to zip through that. Pretty interesting stuff. We want people to kind of know what they're getting into. That's the end of the basic rules. Now, Luke and I talked about it. Once you've played 1 or 2 games of the basic rules and have that, you know, you're used to it.
Yeah.
Do you think you're ever going to see people playing?
No, absolutely not.
You're going to jump right to the advanced.
There's not enough in the basic rules to keep people interested.
Yeah, it's great
Yeah.
as an introduction if
Exactly.
you're teaching a friend.
If you know how to play, you
you're
have a new
demoing
friend.
the game.
There's a scenario, the introductory scenario, Turf War. You just bring your friend and play that game, then after that you can go right to the advanced stuff.
Correct. So we're going to jump over to the advanced rules. So we're already all the way to page 57 in the book here.
Halfway through the book already.
So the things that they add in is the action phase. We have some new actions.
Yes.
Active fighters can take cover or do a coup de grace.
Exactly.
So taking cover is you're trying to stay at a line of fire. So you make a half move and then you get pinned.
Yep.
So it represents you jumping behind something.
Yep. So you're pinning yourself, and again, if you're behind cover and you're pinned, you're out of line of sight.
Right. And then the coup de grace, you pick a seriously injured enemy fighter within an inch and within the vision arc, and you just take them out of action.
There's right about action, and if you're familiar with the game, you can know how devastating that is. One thing to note is in the advanced rules, if you're fighting in melee combat, it's just one-on-one,
Yes.
and you take out your opponent, and then they roll a serious injury, you get a free coup de grace on them,
Yep.
which is huge. So you win combat, they're out. Melee combat is devastating in this game, as it has always been.
Yep. Knock somebody down,
They're out.
step on their neck.
Yep.
Night for them. And then if you make a charge action that ends within an inch of a seriously injured fighter and you're not engaged with any other enemies, of course,
You just take them out.
step on their neck.
Coup de grace.
For pin fighters, we have the blind fire, which is
Yeah.
kind of cool. It is a double action, and you make a shooting attack, treating your vision arc as 360, but you subtract 2 from the result of any hit rolls.
Yeah. So ideally, you do the full action where you crawl and you pin yourself behind cover, and then the next round they activate. If you're not really happy with how they are, then you can just do the blind fire. If you don't want to stand them up and get shot at it, right?
Well, its vision arc is 360, so it's like
Yeah.
shooting behind yourself.
Exactly.
Yep.
Oh, that's true too. You can just shoot behind yourself. You don't have to turn around.
And then seriously injured fighters have the crawl, which is double, and again, you make a half move.
That's only after you've been reduced to 0 wounds and you're trying to get your guy back up. So you just you crawl to get behind cover so they can't be shot at. Because
Right.
people could just shoot at them and try and get them out of the game if they have no other targets.
Next, we're going to talk about activating groups. So in the Underhive rules, you have your champions, your leaders, and your basic grunts.
Yep.
So when a player activates their leader or one of their champions, they can choose to activate additional readied fighters at the same time. 1 additional fighter for a champ and up to 2 additional for their leader. Each additional fighter must be within 4 inches of the leader of the champion. And you basically just get some extra activations.
Yep. So it helps to keep your obviously helps to keep your warband very tight knit around your leadership. Which is this goes back. It doesn't go back to the original where you activate your entire warband and then you pass play. It just gives you something close to that.
Yep.
Because sometimes when you get to activate your entire warband, you can just wipe your opponent in one go if you're lucky enough. You get a few long range guys.
Right.
and-
I do
yeah.
like the I go, you go kind of
I
system.
love alternate
the
activation.
modification to it.
I'm a huge fan of alternate activation.
Something they've added for advanced shooting is the potential to run out of ammo.
And that's where the
Firepower dice
The
come in.
firepower dice, that's what they're called, exactly. If you're out of ammo, you're out of ammo. You have to spend a turn to reload. That's an action you can do, you can reload.
And that
Sometimes
leads
it
right
works.
into reloading weapons, which is a simple action.
Yeah. I'm just you can keep going. I'm curious how this one works.
You want to read it?
Oh, sure. Pick one of the fighter's weapons that is out of ammo and make an ammo check, as described previously. If the check is passed, the weapon is reloaded and the out of ammo marker is removed. If the check has failed, the fighter fails to reload the weapon, either because they do not have to reload to hand or they are too distracted by the fighting to reload. A fighter can attempt to reload the same weapon more than once in a turn because this is a simple action.
Yep. We've got twin guns blazing, so if you're armed with 2 pistols, you can choose to fire both of them, making a range attack. Resolve a full attack with each pistol, one after the other. Both must be made against the same target and with the -1 to hit.
Yeah.
Cool. Something else that they've got here, which I like, is the target priority.
Yes, tiger priority is huge.
So you need to shoot the closest enemy model.
Which is an old rule.
Yep.
That's always been a thing. You measure if, you check to see who's the closest, but then it comes into effect if there's modifiers, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
If you have a close target, but a farther away target's actually easier to hit because of modifiers, you are allowed to shoot that farther away target. They also allow you to take a cool check to see if you want to ignore the closest and shoot somebody else.
Yep. So if the closest is blatantly out in the open and you can shoot them easily, you can just do a cool check, which is one of the new leadership kind of characteristics. Is one of the 3 new ones. And if you pass, you can shoot whoever you want.
Yep, nice and easy. Next, it talks about the improbable shots.
Which is the hitting on 7s.
right. So or 7 or worse.
Yeah.
So let's say you have a ballistic skill of 5 up.
Yep.
You're getting a -2 to hit.
Yep.
You need a 7.
7+.
The way it works is if you roll a 6, then you're allowed to make another roll, and it's your regular ballistic skill.
Oh, it is
roll.
your regular business skill? Okay,
Correct,
so they
yeah.
simplified it then.
Yep.
So before it was a little more complicated.
We have the potential for stray shots.
Yes,
So
stray
if you
shots are
miss,
much deadlier.
there's the chance that anything within a little 1-inch gap of that might be hit.
Yeah, so you have to imagine the imaginary line between yourself and your target. And if you ever miss, if there is anything in that target, you start with the closest to you from the shot, and you start measuring up from there. If there's 2, you start with the closest. If there's not, you just measure 1. If you roll 1, 2, or 3 after your miss, it hits that target.
Correct.
On a
And
1,
then a
2,
4,
or
5,
3.
6, it keeps going.
Yeah, on a 4, 5, 6, it just misses and goes off. And then you roll for the next one after that if there's more than 1 within the straight fire.
Right. We've got the blast markers as well as the flame templates.
Yep.
Nothing too crazy
Nothing
here.
too
We're
crazy.
familiar with them.
I explained how they work with the measuring. If you're off by the measurement, you just measure down to where it would actually hit, and then you scatter from there. Flame templates are just as strong as they were before. You just put it down, automatically hits anything within it. They're all pinned.
Correct. Moving on to advanced close combat, we have assisting and interfering. Luke, you want to explain how this works?
Yeah, so advanced close combat is actually not that different, other than the fact of like the injuries and the coup de grace and all that. Assists. So if you have you have your guy fighting another guy, but you have one of your allies comes in to help out, and he's not distracted by anything else. It's not him fighting someone else right beside one of your guys fighting someone. It's literally 2 of yours on one of them. Clearly, you get +1 to both their hit rolls.
Correct.
So when they go to hit, you see what they need to hit, +1. That's it. And you
And-
get that +1 for each supporting fighter.
Yes. And what if you get somebody running interference?
It's the exact same, but the opposite. So if you're fighting 2 guys, it's -1 to hit because you're distracted.
Well, yeah, if you've
Yeah.
got 2 of your guys in combat and they're trying to swing one of their guys at them.
Yeah, it's -1 to hit. So if it's 2 on 1 in your favor, you get +1 hit. If it's 2 on 1 against you, then -1 to hit. And the -1 to hit obviously scales as well. It can be -4 to hit if you're fighting 4 guys at once. Or 5 guys, yeah.
Yep. Next, we're going to jump over to injuries. So the advanced rules add in the potential for different levels of injuries here.
The out of action.
So
serious
if a
injury,
fighter's
flesh
wound characteristic is reduced to 0 by an attack, or if the attack inflicts damage on a fighter whose wounds characteristic has already been reduced to 0, you make an injury roll by rolling a number of injury dice equal to the attacking weapon's damage characteristic.
Yep.
Kind of like that. It's nice and simple. Before it was just you were rolling d6, but I like this system because it's different dice.
Well, different symbols on dice I always appreciate, right?
So there is the 3 options here that you can get. There's out of action, so pretty self-explanatory. The fighter's taken out
And
of
that's
action.
the order you assign it because, like, say the weapon does do 2 damage, you roll 2 dice. If you roll an out of action, that takes precedence over the other ones.
Correct. Serious injury, the fighter's laid face down. They're seriously injured until they successfully recover in a subsequent end phase. And we're going to talk about the end phase and the changes to that in a couple of minutes. If it was causing close combat and the attacker's not engaged with other fighters, they make the free coup de grace. And then flesh wound, you put a flesh wound marker on the target's fighter card. Each flesh wound marker on the fighter card reduces their toughness by 1. If the toughness is reduced to 0, out of action.
Yep, that's it.
Nice and simple. It's what we're used to, but I'm glad to see that they're not mucking around with it too much here.
Exactly. And now for the advanced end phase, which is, well, quite different.
Yeah,
They added a few pages? Oh, just 2. Just 2 pages.
it's not that bad.
As opposed to the 0 it had before. Well, we can go into nerve tests, which is essentially... here's an example. You have one guy within 3 inches of another guy, and we'll call them Guy A, Guy B. If Guy A is wiped out and taken out of action, Guy B takes a nerve test because he just seen his friend's head gut blown off. So then Guy B would have to take a nerve test, and if he fails, he's running. And the way that works is that guy, essentially he's useless until he rallies, and he has to find the nearest cover. He's always going to run to the nearest cover.
Right, and that's the value you're using is the cool check.
Exactly.
So the thing I like is that there's the expansion on leadership. So you might have some guys that are really cool under pressure when it comes to their friends getting killed around them.
Yep.
But that doesn't represent every single thing that you'd use a leadership test for.
No, this is also the willpower.
They might have a really
intelligence.
bad willpower.
Yep. They could have leadership 8, but like willpower 4.
So pretty similar to what we've seen in the past for broken fighters, which if a fighter fails a nerve test, you run for cover.
Yeah, that's it. That's right.
Simple,
Yeah.
what we've seen before.
And then in the end phase, when you would go to, we would go to rally them. That's the word, rally. But there's an order of operations in the end phase now,
There is. So you're going to start by making a bottle test.
if necessary.
We're familiar with the bottle test of
Yep.
maybe your gang loses its nerve and they decide to run away.
But this one actually, I wouldn't mind touching on this one because it's quite different than
Yeah,
what
sure,
people
go
are used
over
to. So bottle tests before you roll the leadership on your leader, and if you fail, you're out. That's it. Warband's gone. This one, on the other hand, is you immediately start taking bottle tests if one of your fighters is out of action or seriously injured. And what that means is before a fighter activates, you roll their leadership, and you're looking for cool on this one as well. You use cool a lot. You use their cool a lot. If you fail, they're gone. They're out of action. But you do that individually for each fighter you activate. And if they're nearby a leader or a champion, they get bonuses to that roll to help them stick around. So instead of losing your entire warband on one bad bottle test, you get to keep going, but you'll lose one at a time potentially based on their leadership. And that's essentially it. I greatly prefer the new bottle test.
Yep. From there, we've got recovery tests for seriously injured fighters and then rally tests for broken fighters.
Yep.
So again, they've added some more to the end phase here, but it's kind of the stuff that we're familiar with.
Exactly.
already.
If you're familiar with the old rules, then this stuff it's not a big change, which I
Right.
appreciate.
Another thing we're going to touch on real quick is the tactics cards.
Yeah. So the box comes with like this big pile of big deck of cards, the tactic cards, as well as the character cards.
So you've got Necromunda Underhive contains a number of tactics cards, which can be used to represent the myriad tricks and schemes employed by the gangs. There's 3 types of tactic cards: gang tactics, which can be used by any gang, and then you've got Escher and Goliath specific ones used
Exactly.
by the relevant gang.
So if you're familiar with Shadespire, it's similar to that
Yep.
in a way.
So choosing cards at the start of each battle that uses tactic cards because it's optional.
Yeah.
Each player receives a deck of tactics cards. By default, this includes 1 copy of each gang tactics cards. There's 2 copies of each, plus all their own gang's cards. If a player has access to other tactic cards, for example, if they purchased an expansion set, they are added to the deck. Each scenario will state how many tactic cards each side has access and how they are chosen. Players can usually choose which cards they take, but sometimes will be selected at random. Either case, the cards are drawn from the player's own deck and kept secret from their opponent until they're played.
Yep. So it's just like a secret hand of cards to have to help you throughout the battle. You know what? It actually could be huge.
Yep.
The tactic cards are one of the biggest changes to the game. I guess they felt like they wanted to add that in, that random factor that your opponent never knows about.
Yeah.
Because you can see what your opponent's doing on the field, but you don't know what they have in their hand for these said cards. And they range from a great, like, bombs, traps,
All sorts of fun
maneuverability, all sorts of crazy fun stuff.
Jumping to the next set of pages, we've got the different terrain features. The box, again, you guys saw it in Dave's unboxing, contains both 2D and 3D terrain.
Yep.
And they've got the full set of rules here. So doors, door terminals and locked doors. They've got the beast's lair. They've got barricades, pitfalls, ductways, all sorts of fun stuff.
Yep. They just help you get through the battlefield and stuff
Loot
you have to deal
caskets,
with.
booby traps.
Ammo caches. Oh, man. There's a whole lot of stuff in here.
Now, continue on the rest of the book. Next couple pages is going to be the armory for ranged weapons. So that gives you all your weapon stats.
Lots of weapons.
Everything you need to know. You get your close combat weapons. Bombing through, continue. You get your war gear, so that's your armor, respirators, stuff like that.
Yep.
Grenades, of course. And then all the different weapons traits that you have access to with all these different weapons.
And there's
Couple
a
pages
lot.
of them.
There's tons.
Another interesting thing is once we hit page 81, it talks about founding a gang.
Yes.
So that would be if you want to play Necromunda Underhive, but you don't want to use the pre-made gangs with the pre-made characters. You want to do your own thing. So this gives you the rules for that. They currently have the rules for House Goliath and House Escher.
The only two current ones they have rules for.
Right, now we know that the Legacy rules are coming. At the time we're filming this,
Yeah.
I haven't seen them yet.
Neither have I.
But to be fair, I haven't checked it today. Like I've checked almost every other day.
That's true.
So your Goliath gang, it's pretty simple how you do it. Everybody has their own credits value. You've got access to 1 leader, 0 to 2 champions, 3 or more gangers. And then the weapons all have costs. The armor comes at no cost. You've got your war gear. And skills, it's pretty easy because there's no progression in Necromunda Underhive.
No, there's none.
Which I was
In
bummed
the
out
basic
about.
rules.
But we're going to talk about that after. So the way it works is you got leaders and champions each have 1 skill chosen from those below.
Yep.
Only the leader can take leader skills. So there's looks like about 9 different skills that are generic ones for Goliath, and then 3 for the leader.
Yeah. Yep.
Pretty simple. And then House Escher works the same way. So in Necromunda Underhive, you don't have the game-to-game, injured arms, permanent injuries.
Yeah.
If you play linked games, there are rules in here that, fighters might be out of action for that game, but they'll come back.
Yeah. This is for the basic rule book, just like the Necromunda Underhive. There is a supplementary expansion.
We're almost there.
We're getting there.
Underhive battles, so preparing for battle, they talk about, if you want to roll scenarios, custom board layouts, and the linked games.
Yeah.
And then they give you 6 different scenarios.
Yep, so there's 6 different scenarios in this book, and they're all pretty interesting. I like them all. They use the 2D terrain setup.
Correct.
With the little 3D standees and
And we
stuff
say
like that.
2D because there's still technically some 3D terrain in there, but you
Yeah.
play on boards.
The
It's not
flat
on a
board.
traditional tabletop kind of mat you would see in most other war games.
What you're mostly used to, yeah.
And that sums up everything you get in Underhive, the book. So mostly everything. I had some real concerns that we weren't going to get the full book in there.
Yeah,
That,
you
it
thought
would
that
be.
maybe it'd be
I
more
thought
of
it
a
would be
board
like
game.
a board game with basic rules, and then you'd have to get the supplement. Wasn't the case. Now we do have the supplements here, which is Gang War.
It's much smaller. That's good. It only covers what's really important. What I personally am interested in. I assume what you are as well.
Yeah. Well, because I love, the game I had the most experience with was Mordheim.
Well,
But
myself.
I always wanted to play Necromunda. It's just nobody here had Necromunda stuff, so there was that. So when you jump over to Gang War, the 2 things that they add in is it is the system to play with I think they call it Sector Mechanicus.
It is called Sector Mechanicus, and right there, folks, is your 3D build your own table Necromunda style game.
Probably, it's not what you're going to see us play for the first set of linked games. We're going to play in the Zone Mortalis. But it's what we're going to probably work towards for filming a full proper campaign once we got rules for a bunch of different gangs. I'm super excited for this.
And
so the Zone Mortalis rules basically just add that 3rd dimension in. So
the Sector
moving
Mechanicus.
up. Oh, sorry, the Sector Mechanicus. And then the additional rules is they moved to true line of sight.
True line of sight at that point, yeah.
And the cover system is dependent on how much of your mini is just covered.
And that'll cover like percentiles.
Not necessarily just the base, yeah. So again, if you're out in the open, you're out in the open. If you're up to 50% covered, you are...
Full cover, or is it partial?
You're partial cover. And then if you're 50% or more covered, then it's full cover.
Up to 50%. Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, True Line of Sight is back, of course, with the. No need to worry if you're just playing the. I'm just excited. Sorry.
I'm super excited for
I'm
this.
so happy they came back with this, and then of course climbing's back. Jumping from point to point is back. Obviously,
Yep. Falling damage.
falling damage is back. Getting all over the battlefield is all back. If you missed it, well, it's back.
Now, that's the first 10 pages or so. Then we run into campaigns.
And you got the fully built campaigns in here as well.
So the different campaign battles, they talk about turf wars and cycles. So it's essentially almost the same feel if you were playing Blood Bowl,
Yep.
where they say determine how long a season's going to be.
Yep.
It's the same, you determine how long the turf war is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And then the end of the campaign's the apotheosis. So that's kind of the cinematic end battles that are happening to see who's going to win that turf war. So again, your gangs and campaigns, they give you the rules for making your gangs. And so they've got all the founding gang rules. They've got the sheet in here, but Games Workshop's done a really good job. Like the rosters have been up for a while already. You've got
Yeah.
the cards if you want to use them.
And a way more in detailed, like how to build your army.
Right.
Way
And then
more.
we jump over to campaign battles, and they talk about gaining experience and advancing your different gangers because they add in the juvies.
Yep.
So I'm super excited for this. So yeah, they talk about the actual progression. So they add back in, your guys actually advancing and getting better.
That is so good. Yeah, double. It's just a 2d6 level up system, essentially.
Yep.
You roll a 2, they become a specialist. You roll a 12, they become a specialist.
I don't know
all
the
that.
Necromunda table before, but it feels
can't
basically
remember either.
like it would be.
Yeah.
They get into the permanent lasting injuries.
Yep.
Get into succumbing to injuries, being captured,
Yep.
how to capture, and then fleeing the battlefield, and then all of your post-game stuff for upgrading your gang, and then your territory. They've got all the different territories in here, the special territories
resources.
you can have for
Yep.
resources. Yeah, all your post-game stuff. I'm super excited to get back into this, and I want to see the other gangs.
And we're all.
Yeah. So campaign references, the trading post, and again, they've got the rules in here. It's expanded out for the different kind of equipment you can have. Same with the weapons, so you can customize everything.
They got a little part in there with all the Armageddon terrain that they came up with. I've seen that.
Special rules. They've got your different skills you can get because
Yep.
it's not just the stat upgrades. Of course, they're still going to keep the skills.
Your characteristic upgrades, your skill upgrades, your permanent injuries,
And it
and your
looks
Jews leveling
like-
up.
Yep. So there's for each different type of skill, there's the 6 different ones, and we've got the agility, brawn, combat, cunning, ferocity, leadership, shooting, savant.
And obviously what the gangs are good at getting and stuff like that.
Yeah, because then you get into the campaign house lists.
Exactly.
So there's the page that talks about if you want a House Goliath gang, when you go to found it, there must be one leader. And then there's the rules if your leader's killed.
Yeah.
There can be no more than 2 champions, plus 1 for every full 10 reputation the gang has. The total number of gangers in the gang must be equal to or higher than the total number of other fighters. So leaders, juves, and champions in the gang, not counting hangers on. And that's described in future supplements. So that's
all it really says
the big
there.
hint there
Yeah.
that there's going to be more stuff.
Obviously all the other houses.
And then the fighters can be equipped with a maximum of 3 weapons.
Yeah.
They've got the different skill accesses for your leader, your champion, your juves, and your specialists.
Yeah. Like what's the leader have? He can't take agility, but he can take primary, brawn, and secondary as combat. Cannot take cunning, and he can take ferocity.
Is a
and-
primary, leadership's a primary, and then shooting's a secondary.
Yep, and nothing in savant.
And you flip the page, and it's your, for lack of a better term, your army list for actually building your
Exactly,
gang.
and it's very detailed.
And
just
all
like,
your point
Just like
costs.
it was before. And all the
Yep.
upgrades they can take, what you can buy for them, how much it costs. So what is the starting? Like you start with like 500? Is it something like that?
I
don't
think
even
it's
know.
1,000.
Is it 1,000?
I might be making that up, though. You put me on the spot, Luka.
I actually have no idea, so
Well, now I'm going to have to double check. Talk about House Escher.
yeah, we'll talk about House Escher. Let me go get to House Escher. See, I'm more interested in Goliath. I guess Escher's pretty cool too. I'd play both. I don't know. So obviously they're quite the opposite. The leadership can take, well, they can all take primary agility, so they're fast. They get around the field. They jump from point to point. They're just gonna outmaneuver Goliath in every way, shape, and form. They can take combat, nothing than brawn. They can take cunning, and they don't take shooting or savant though.
It's 1,000 credits.
It is actually 1,000
Yeah, it's
credits.
1,000. See, I'm not crazy.
Maybe that's. I'm just used to used to more time 500 as a starting.
True. I guess that's fair. And then you've got the different scenarios in here as well. So you've got your 6 different scenarios, even though one of them is the rescue mission that
There's always
doesn't come up unless you get captured.
There's always a rescue mission. So I haven't actually read the scenarios, but I would assume that these supplement scenarios are more akin to the campaign
Correct.
rules.
So yeah, you've got pretty well all the classic stuff you are used to at this point.
You got the standoff where you guys just fight down a single lane. You got looters. You got ambush, of course. Border dispute, which is probably just like a basic game, and sabotage, and then rescue the one who screwed up. Rescue the one that got left
No, I
behind.
don't believe in rescuing them. It's
Just
their
let
fault
them
that they got captured.
Rescue missions are so easy. I don't know. At least
In all the different campaigns we have rescue missions, I still haven't done one.
Oh, you never been captured.
No.
Oh,
We fight to the death.
I don't think I've been captured either.
You're making that up now.
There was one time Matthew got captured, and he's like, "We're having a rescue mission tomorrow."
Yeah, because you changed the structure of the whole thing. But we're getting off topic now.
Yeah.
So this is the basic kind of read through. Like I said, guys, the idea, well, guys and gals that are watching, the basic idea here is that Luke and I were reading through the rules, starting to do some of the prep work, because we are going to be covering a good chunk of Necromunda here, because everybody's excited for it. And all these different progression games are super up my alley. These are the skirmish games that I love.
Yep,
So we are going to play some Necromunda Underhive to get started, do some linked games, and as we get more of our terrain ready, because we never have enough terrain, as well as get the legacy rules for the other gangs. Stay tuned for a full-on gang war. Other than that, guys,
The gang war.
thanks
I'm
for
so
tuning
excited
in
for the
as
gang war.
we went through what is included in the books.
Yeah.
Closing remarks, Luka? What do you think? Overall, how
You know what? Honestly, I can't stop thinking about the gang war. I'm like, what gang do I want to play? Do I want to play Goliath? Do I want to play Asher? I want to wait. Like, do you think they're gonna come up with the Adeptus Arbites?
The Enforcers?
The Enforcers?
I hope. I don't know
The
if it's going to be the
cops.
first batch.
Justice!
Because I was looking at them for the longest time, but
Yep.
then as soon as they
Town?
announced Necromunda, I went and started looking at Spires.
Okay. Well, see, I always kind of looked at Goliath in the past.
Spires. House Spire.
Scryers.
They're Spirers.
They're Spires? What does that mean?
Well, they
Oh, they're
do you know
nobles.
how
Are they?
it's
yeah, they're
nobles.
the nobles,
It's
right?
the rich
They're-
kids that are going
I
to prove
forgot.
themselves, yeah.
Yep.
I am too excited for this.
Goliath. It's gonna be Goliath. All right, guys. I could go on about that forever. I'll just end it there, and hope you guys like this little. Remember, this was just our first impressions of the game, and obviously we're happy with it. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and hope you guys are equally happy with how they wrote these rules out. We could have gone into more detail about it, but there's really not much more to it than that. There'll be a more fully in-depth rule after we've actually played the game a little bit.
Exactly. So stay tuned, because next week, like I said, we're going to play a heck of a lot of games of Underhive.
Yep.
Get those up into the channel for you folks to watch, and other than that, we're going to start getting prepped for Gang War.
Happy wargaming.